let's go with Rich. Rich,
Oh,
tell us your top five of
all right.
2013.
All right, this list may be controversial for some, but I'm gonna just keep it real. Because let me start out by saying this: there was some people, one person in particular, a writer for our site by the name of David Jagno, which said that he said that all of the next gen games were lackluster or average, and therefore, by default, he is saying that to justify why he did not buy a next gen console. I disagree with that completely because I'm not going to sit here and say NAC is on the same exact level as a Rise or a Dead Rising because it is not. This is a totally different argument. But I'll get to that. So, going to my list, my number 5 pick was a game that I figured was going to be a pretty bad game. When I heard that they had the name of the game that they came up with, I was like, okay, this is going to be a disaster. But Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Now, Platinum Games, they are not they've made some good games in the past. Of course, the one game they made that came out this year that I thought was absolutely horrible, Anarchy Reigns.
Wonderful?
Perfect
Oh,
title.
I thought you were going to say Wonderful 101.
Oh no. Well,
Wow.
no, that game actually a lot of people like that game. So but Anarchy Reigns was complete and utter garbage. I don't care. I know there are some sites out there that love this game. They praise the game. I'm not going to point names or say nothing. I'm going to just say I didn't like the game at all. So I didn't think that this game was going to be pretty good. But as I had a chance to play it, I enjoyed the combat. Of course, I like Raiden as a character. I like his alter ego of Jack the Ripper. I thought that was an interesting story element in and of itself because that's a side of the character we never saw. They hinted at that character in Metal Gear Solid 2, but of course you see it full force in this game. Plus, I liked a lot of the characters they had in the game as well as the actual boss battles. So, after playing the game, seeing that people liked it so much, they did say that they are working on a sequel of sorts, but they don't have anything to talk about right now. I believed it because I enjoyed the game from beginning to end. Yes, it was relatively short, but overall a great experience. What was you going to say?
No, I was just sorry to be an asshole here, but I just wanted to ask, what characters did you actually like?
Which characters?
Yeah,
Man,
because I didn't like any characters. Like,
I did.
And this is coming from a Metal Gear fan.
oh, really?
yeah,
Samuel was pretty cool. Samuel? What the fuck was his name, right?
Yeah, the dude that died, Samuel, yeah.
And
mean-
the wolf was pretty cool.
Yeah, the wolf was good. Hey, wolf. I
Yeah,
mean,
there you go.
the one thing I enjoyed the most was the actual bass bottles because
yeah.
that stuff was that was great. The way it
Yeah,
was.
I'll give you that. Like, see, my thing is, the game, the actual gameplay of the game was great. Like, I liked it, But for me, it was super short, and the story was it wasn't engaging. It wasn't gripping to me at all. For Metal Gear standards, basically, it wasn't all that, in my opinion. But, yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not going to argue with your choice. It is good at parts, and the boss battles definitely are incredible.
I mean, all I'm saying is that I figured the game was going to be far worse, and a lot of people had thoughts that it was going to be horrible, but it wasn't. And then, just like they said, you could slice literally anything that you wanted to in the game, so they stayed true as far as promising to deliver on that. So I overall enjoyed the game. Yes, it was short, without question. But I felt like that was meant to introduce you to where they can take the series next. They had dealt with some very serious subject matter in there about the machines taking over humans and all this other stuff. But they also had humor in there as well. And I thought that balance was also a very good balance to have too. So overall, it was good. Yeah, the final boss was a pain in the ass to play against. But yes.
And extremely stupid.
Yes, and extremely retarded. Yes. but fun stupid. You know, that's what I would say.
Yeah,
So,
what I did like as well is like I liked the level of skill you had to have as well, like as far as timing the parry and everything. Because at first I was like I sucked at parrying at first, but like after what's that boss fight halfway the boss battle halfway through the game? I can't remember now. It's the dude that throws all the cars and all that type of shit at you. You remember that one?
I remember that one.
I do, that big fat dude, but I forgot what his name is.
Yeah.
Like that boss battle basically taught me how to parry. Like I had to learn how to do it. So you know, I liked the skill level of the game. Like it was really good. I just wish there was more of it. You know.
Yeah.
Because it was really short.
Perhaps they will improve on a lot of things moving forward. I believe that they will, because they know people like the game. But I'm gonna move on to my next pick, because you know, I don't want to stay on this game for too long. But yes, the next pick. As I had said before, I talked about the fifth pick. There were some people that said that all next gen games were the same. I completely disagree with that. I know that the last podcast y'all reported, you said that the game Rise was very middle of the road, and we'll trust Ed's opinion because he played the game. Now I don't know if you played the game, Gary. And when I say played the game, I ain't talking about the multiplayer. I'm talking about the actual campaign.
Yeah, I played the campaign on launch day.
Okay. So well, that's okay. Everybody is.
It was only the first 2 levels though, so you know I can't judge the full game.
That's fine though, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. The reason why I say it deserves to be on the list is because, well, first and foremost, it is a personal choice. I very much enjoy Gladiator. I enjoyed the show Spartacus. I can't ever tell you why, because the brutality is very repetitive. The way that certain things happen in the show, which is similar to the game, but how the game differentiates. There are a lot of people that said that the story is not original at all, but the thing is this. It's taking things from the point of view of somebody that is now in the Roman army and turns against his own army. Essentially, that's what happens in the game. All these other shows that I've seen before, it's taken from the perspective of the barbarians that got killed in the game itself. So I see how they use that dynamic. And by the way, if I have to say one thing that I enjoyed the most about Rise, without question, was Act 7. The act right before the final act, where you're fighting, you know, the gladiator outfit, everything, that right there was the best act in the whole game, I would say. But overall, yes, the game has repetitive executions. Yes, the story was not perfect, but I enjoyed the combat for what it was. Graphically, the game looks excellent. Now, that felt like a next-gen game when I actually sat down and played it. When I actually was giving commands to my team, and we had to block the oncoming arrows being shot at us, all of that stuff I enjoyed heavily. And to me, that felt like a good use of the Kinect, because I couldn't think of any other way that they could use Kinect for a game like this, aside from the original thing they were going to do, which is going to just be full on-body combat. But for what it's worth, I enjoyed what they did with the game, and I thought the story was great. You had everything that these games normally do have, these type of stories where it was a tragic story, of course, the ending. We know it wasn't going to be a good ending, but to me, everything came together nicely. So, are there any criticisms? Let's have the criticisms.
Hey, like I said, man, I only played like the first 2 levels. I tried the online mode and hated it, but you know, beyond that, I can't really say much because you know I haven't played the whole game. But yeah, from what I played, I didn't like it. But that's just my opinion. You know.
Well, yeah. Well, what about you, Ed?
I did play it and beat it. I do like it. I think it's kind of a mediocre game, to be honest. At most, you know, but it definitely has potential to be something greater. But yeah, there's just like too many like little gripes with that game that I have that probably stop it from being in my personal top 5. But definitely worth mentioning, honorable mention. if I were to have that.
Well, that's totally fine. That works for me. So going to my next pick, number 3, Tomb Raider. All right, now this is a game that clearly is going to be talked about for a lot of negative reasons. The game itself, let's just go ahead and get out the way right now. The supporting characters in that game are absolutely horrible. There's some stereotypes in there as well. You just don't care about the characters, Laura, because they made Lara Croft the strongest character of every character in the game, but rightfully so because the game is about her. The game took a lot of inspiration from Uncharted. I know people will say, no, them cutscenes, them QuickTime, Uncharted. These guys were looking, yes, this is it. But still, what I like about this game and what I don't like about Uncharted. Uncharted is a fun game in terms of being an Indiana Jones type of game. You know, it's PG-13 for kids. This game was a mature, and I do mean mature with a capital M, game. You felt the character having all types of issues. Survival, of course, you know, one of the most important moments when she first killed the guy in the field. That was, you know, a very emotional moment for her, etc. But I mean, you know, and the brutality of when you actually kill people was like, okay, this is cool. Now there was some cheesiness because there was some instances in the game where you're in fights where all of a sudden she decides to get cocky and throws out lines like, "Come on, you want some more?" That was a little cheesy. All right, I'll admit that right now. But aside from that, the game itself was, by all accounts, I had a good time with it. I did not like the fact that they decided to cram in a multiplayer mode because that was totally, they didn't need that at all. And I don't like any game that has that. We'll get back to that in my second pick. But yes, the multiplayer, not a fan of that at all. Aside from that, though, I still enjoyed the game for what it was worth. Is it a game of the year contender? Hell no, it's not. So it shouldn't even be in the discussion. But as far as for favorites, I enjoyed it. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. I mean, like the core gameplay mechanics, I enjoyed like the actual gameplay of that game. It's just the story and the characters that kind of lay it down for me slightly. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the story elements didn't really make sense or didn't add up, and you know a lot of it was like just over the top. But yeah, aside from that, it was an enjoyable game. You know, so I can't hate on that.
Yeah. You guys have anything to add? I know you two played it.
Well, I barely played it, so I can't really talk about it. But I'm looking forward to the definitive edition. That's all I can say.
Xbox One, yes.
Yep.
What about you, JJ?
I thought Tomb Raider was good, you know, for what it was trying to do. Like, trying to just reboot and bring back, you know, Lara Croft in a better light into everybody's consciousness. But I didn't think it was like, you know, Game of the Year material. I didn't like it as much as I wanted it to. Because I was actually kind of hyped for the game because it looked good for all the times, like with the previews and all the talk about it. But I felt like it just didn't live up to it as much. And honestly, I don't know if we really need a definitive version of that game, especially for next gen. That feels like, you know, that should be done like, you know, now with like all the DLC. It's like a Game of the Year edition to me. And it's just like it doesn't really feel like it needed it.
That's exactly what it is.
I feel like I needed, like, if you want to go further with it, give me the next Tomb Raider. Give me the next story in Lara Croft's, you know, tale.
Yeah.
That's what I'm pretty sure they're doing, obviously, for next gen. But as far as, like, you know, what Tomb Raider, you know, the reboot or whatnot, it was all right.
Yeah.
And for the record, I didn't care for that multiplayer at all. Like, I can even remember, like, when we were trying to do the multiplayer matches with like about a couple of us, we just really couldn't get it to work that well. It just wasn't fun.
Yeah, multiplayer without question, horrible.
Yeah, but let me just say as well before you move on, I think the next Tomb Raider that they make, I think they're gonna nail it and make a classic. Like, I think, you know, they'll fix everything that was an issue with this game, and they'll make the next one like a classic game. That's just my prediction.
So. Hopefully so. But yeah, to speed up my other two picks, obviously number 2, The Last of Us. Now everyone assumed that this game was going to be number 1. They assumed that I was going to be the one to say that this is my number one game because I have had a very well documented history with this game for this whole year. We went to PAX East. I was among the first to play it, along with JJ and Anthony, and I was not impressed with that demo. That was just not the demo that they needed to have at that particular event. I almost wish that Sony had just foregoed having the demo in the first place and just focused on finishing the whole game because it gave me a negative perception of what to expect. The people who were on hand gave no direction as to what you were supposed to do to actually navigate through the demo. There was no explanation at all of what you were actually seeing on screen, the items, etc., the crafting. None of that stuff was explained. So, and of course, it was in the alpha stages, so it did not look as finished and polished as the final product did. Okay, so I wrote a preview about it. A whole bunch of people went ballistic. They came after me talking about, now how are you going to say the game is horrible? And these people didn't even play the game. So I found that a little comical. But, you know, it is what it is. Now, months later, PlayStation sent me a code to try out the actual preview build of the first of 2 missions in the game. One was in Lincoln, and the other one was in Pittsburgh. No, Boston and Pittsburgh, I believe. But yes, that was excellent. I enjoyed it. And, you know, when I finally got a chance to play the game, yes, it delivered in many ways. I agree with a lot of stuff that you said, Gary, about the gameplay, you know, a little touch and go. But overall, the story was excellent. The acting was excellent. I actually cared about the characters. And, of course, the ending, where they ended the game, was also excellent. But, you know, we'll get into why it was my number one in a second. But I'll just say this to finish off, talking about The Last of Us. On the surface, the game was perfect in many ways. But the multiplayer experience, once again, people praise the multiplayer saying, oh, this is an excellent multiplayer experience. I did not have a good time when we played multiplayer on that game for whatever reason. It was another game where I felt like you didn't need to have multiplayer in there. It could have just been the core storyline, and that would have been fine with that. But because it wasn't in there, it's like, okay, yeah, I was a little annoyed by that. And then seeing the developers come on Twitter and saying, this is the best multiplayer we've ever made in a game, that made me want to slap somebody. But,
well, technically it is.
Well, he said technically it is. Would you guys agree? Would you guys agree?
I mean, it's the best one that Naughty Dog have made.
That's like everything that what they've tried to do with Uncharted and most of their other older games, as far as like, you know, making a game that, you know, tell an engaging story that really grips you into it and keeps you coming back for more constantly and stuff. That's like the culmination of all that is in The Last of Us. But I'll talk about that later. That's just me though. But as far as like multiplayer, I totally understand where you're coming from though, Rich.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll get to the last pick. I know Ed ain't got nothing to say because he didn't like the game. So, let's just go ahead and get to the reason why. Okay, number one pick, and it's an obvious no-brainer. BioShock Infinite. For those that ask me why BioShock Infinite is number one, let me just tell you it just like this. Gary, you hit it on the head earlier when you said that in BioShock the world is immersive. There is stuff going on that has absolutely nothing to do with you interacting. Now, you can interact in some instances, but there's just other stuff going on around you which makes you feel like it's a living, breathing world. You know, that's how it felt. Some of the stuff that they dealt with, the subject matters of things that they dealt with, some very mature themes like racism and stuff of that nature. I was very glad to see some of this stuff mentioned because, yes, it will be considered controversial for some, but the way in which it was handled was actually well done. The twist at the end, excellent. And it is among one of the best endings that I have ever witnessed. Now, needless to say, BioShock 1, I still say BioShock 1 is better than this game, but this is a close second. Now, I'm not talking about BioShock 2 because I didn't play BioShock 2. I know Ed played BioShock 2. But I knew damn well that wasn't going to be a real sequel to the actual game. This felt like a true sequel to the first BioShock game, more ways than one. And, of course, getting back to what I said before about multiplayer, one thing I love about this game, they did not cram multiplayer in there at all, and you didn't need that. They focused on making the core story the strongest part of the game. Therefore, all the other stuff wasn't needed. Now, the DLC they had afterwards, the Clash in the Clouds, which I also reviewed on the site, that was a little, okay, I didn't need that.
That DLC sucked, B. Come on, even you gotta admit that.
We didn't need that.
But Burial at Sea is dope, though.
Yes, Burial at Sea is excellent. And you played it, Venomous. I played it as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
I enjoyed that, although I do believe that the second part is going to be way better than the first one because
definitely
you get to play as Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I mean, the game was excellent. You know, the ending might have went over people's heads a little bit too much because it's kind of like Inception. You know, that type of ending makes you think a lot more. But in my opinion, that was what sold me. The game was good. It lived up to the expectations of what it was. Now, needless to say, some stuff wasn't all perfect because the one argument people did have was when you got those potions, those powers, not really no explanation beyond that. BioShock 1 did a better job of explaining those in every sense of the word. But still, with that said, I thought the game was excellent. It had to be my number one because it was a game I was waiting to play. And you got to remember, this was a game that got delayed because it was supposed to come out in 2012 originally. Then it kept getting pushed back. So, but it was worth the wait. I enjoyed it. So, without question, that's my number one.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, man. Like, that's definitely one of the standout games this year, man. And I forgot to mention it earlier, but that game actually made me go back and play BioShock 1 as well. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the best games this year, without a doubt.
Yes.
So, good choice.
Thank you.